Hi, my name is Bethany Borsma, and our Good News Reflection of the Day at the Lakes Church for this Thursday, July 15th is Acts 28. Acts 28 is the last chapter in this book, and it starts right where the last chapter left off of them surviving this shipwreck. They are washed ashore on an island and all survive. And just in summary of this chapter, once on the island, Paul shows the power he has through Christ in not being affected by a viper snake and healing the chief official's father and many others on the island, but he is still a prisoner. After they winter on this island, they go to Rome and are greeted by brothers and community there. And while still a prisoner then, Paul calls together the Jewish leaders. The Jews are the reason he's here in the first place because of his message and his evangelism and the gospel. But he pulls together the Jewish leaders essentially to present his case, and they tell him, well, we haven't really heard anything bad about you, but we want to hear your views and your side because we've heard about this religious sect that you've been presenting. So they come, not just the leaders, but the Jews in even greater numbers. And Paul preaches to them, and he presents the gospel, and he evangelizes. And he goes, besides speaking of Jesus, he reaches back into the history of Moses and the prophets in order to present the gospel. And some of them are convinced, and some of them are not, and argue amongst themselves. But Paul just seems to be a really stubborn person. God had to lay him completely blind flat initially to get him to this place of conviction and belief in order to become an evangelist instead of just a persecutor. And now that persistent stubbornness seems exactly what God needs him to have in order to continue to preach the same message that got him arrested initially, and to continue to preach that message to the Jews where he is sent as a prisoner. Paul's message doesn't change because the gospel doesn't change. And so Paul preaches that, and Paul presents this gospel, and he quotes from Isaiah the prophet in verse 27, for he says, "For this people's heart has become calloused. They hardly hear with their ears and have closed their eyes. Otherwise they might see with their eyes, hear with their ears, understand with their hearts, and turn, and I would heal them." And this is very offensive to some of the Jews, and why some of them are not convinced. And yet they're fulfilling this prophecy all the while doing that. This also feels like a reminder to us that we may remember not to have calloused hearts, that we might hear and see and understand with our hearts, that we might turn and be healed by God. This allows Paul actually to stay multiple years, well, not free, but to stay and present his gospel, the gospel that God gave him to present for multiple years in this space. Because the gospel doesn't change. May we continue to have soft hearts, and may we continue to remember the gospel doesn't change.